Alright, today I'm talking about intercepts. Now when we talk about intercepts, we're talking about where the graph of the line crosses the x-axis and the y-axis. So looking up here, I graphed a line where it crosses the y-axis up here and it crosses the x-axis over here. So the question is, at what point does the graph cross the x-axis? Well, it crosses at -1. So I would say that the x-intercept would be -1. But the y-coordinate is always going to be 0 when we talk about x-intercepts. So if you want to find the x-intercept, what you want to do is you want to let y be 0. Now, where does the graph cross the y-axis? It crosses up here at 1. So that means the y-intercept is going to be 0, 1. And the reason why I have a 0 in the x-coordinate is because I'm letting x be 0. So if you want to find the y-intercepts, you have to let x be 0. Now, if you're given an equation like this, 4x minus y equals 4, what you want to do is you want to find the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts. So finding the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts are pretty easy. All you have to do is let the opposite variable be 0. So when I want to find the x-intercepts, I'm going to let y be 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite my equation the same way that I found it, and then I'm going to let y be 0. So I get 4x minus 0 equals 4. And the only thing I'm doing is I'm keeping everything the same except for y. I'm letting that be 0. X is going to remain x. So now, working out and simplifying it, I find out that subtracting 0 doesn't really do anything. So I end up with 4x is equal to 4. Now, to get x by itself, since I have a 4 outside, I need to divide by 4 on both sides. And I get x is equal to 1. So I know that my x-intercept is going to be 1, and that means the graph is going to cross the x-axis at +1. So the way I write it as an ordered pair is going to be 1, 0. Notice that x is 1, but y is always going to be 0 when we're talking about x-intercepts. Because remember, finding x-intercepts is pretty easy. You just got to let y be 0. Now to find the y-intercepts, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to let x be 0. So I write out my equation just the way I found it, and I'm going to let x be 0. So everywhere I see an x, I'm going to replace that with 0. But the y is going to remain the way it is. Okay, so I have 4 times 0. I know that's going to be 0. So I get 0 minus y is equal to 4. The 0 doesn't really amount to much, so I just get -y is equal to 4. Now to get y by itself, the only thing I have to do here is divide both sides by a -1, and that will get rid of the negative out in front. So when I do that, I get y is equal to 4 divided by -1, that's going to be -4. So what that means is the y-intercept is -4. So the graph is going to cross the y-axis at -4. So the way I'm going to write my point is I'm going to write it 0, -4. Notice that my y is -4, but my x is 0. And that's by design, because remember, to find the y-intercepts, we always let x be 0. So basically what you're doing is you're just taking your equation and you're letting the opposite variable be equal to 0 and just seeing what happens. So I hope that helps. That's intercepts.